Welcome to Double Fries No Slaw. It is Sunday, April 27th. TJ Pinger, Richie Barnes. Richie, how's your week been?
Good. Been a been a relaxing weekend. Not a whole lot going on, and I need to do my taxes before May 1st. So that's my whole priority right now. Just trying to get that done. Um, but how about you, man?
Pretty good. Yeah, I asked for an extension on my taxes, which lets you go till like April, and then I did them like 2 days later. So I really should have just done the right thing and filed them on time, but I also don't like to pay in, and so I didn't. That was my motivation for not filing
I pay every
early.
year.
Yeah,
It's funny, but they say when you get married, right, you get tax credits and whatnot. I've paid every year since I've been married the past 8 years. So that's been a lot of fun. I've always got money back before that.
yeah. I used to get money back, but now we don't. Like I always have to pay in, and it's a pain in the butt, and so I just delay that for as long as humanly possible to not have to pay. Um, so all right, cool. Well, let's jump into things. Yeah, no, it's been a good weekend. We went to a wedding on Friday night, and then yesterday, like we did nothing. Like I sat around and watched sports all day, which was great. NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs are on. Florida State was playing a lot of stuff, so we did nothing. The kids played in the pool. We watched a lot of sports. They watched some movies in the morning. I don't know, just chill. We went to church this morning.
It's 2-1 now. Let's go.
Do they play again today?
Yeah, 7 p.m. tonight.
Yeah. So if they can win that one, it's a series. If not, go down 3-1. Going back to Boston feels pretty tough. But the Lakers need to win today. So that series has gone back and forth. So. All right, Double Fries No Slaw presented by Guthrie's. You can visit all three of their locations, 1818 West Tennessee Street, 2550 North Monroe, and 2870 Apalachee Parkway. Appreciate them for their support as always. Make sure if you're stopping by any Guthrie's in Tallahassee or wherever you get your gut box, Double Fries No Slaw. And then if you're checking out any of those athletic events we talked about, NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, the Lightning got a big win. Make sure you're following BetUS TV for all of their coverage of it. Really, really good stuff, and appreciate them for their support as well. You can also wager with them at BetUS if you so choose. Richie, Florida State, we were wondering last week if they would pick anybody up out of the portal. They finally have a couple of commitments. We'll talk about both of them, but they actually made a pretty big splash. I know that we've been negative. Maybe we'll get negative later too. But try and start this out with some pretty good positivity. Florida State lands honestly, like the top DB available per on three. When he committed, he was the top available player in the portal in Jeremiah Wilson. And a kid that, Florida State never struggles to recruit DBs. Pat Surtain, I wish he could recruit every position because he is that good and seems to do a really good job. I think at a place like Florida State, a school, a program that's in that conversation for DBU always, I'm not necessarily doing backflips when you land a good DB because that's the expectation here. The expectation is to land really good talent everywhere. But at DB specifically, they continue to do a really good job, and they get a top player in the portal. And again, I don't know that this was one of the highest priority positions that we talked about when we went through every single position of, on the roster and said, like, would they get here? Would they not get here? But we did say, if you can go out and land a stud, if you can go out and land a guy that you really think could be a number one or could be, take the bulk of the lead of what you need at the cornerback position, then you go do it. And they went out and did this. And I think they have significantly raised the ceiling and the floor of that room. And I think what it'll do is I think you're not waiting on two guys to emerge now. Like you don't need, you need one guy to step up and be that other corner. And then you can use other pieces as depth, whether that's Arnaud or Rawls or just whomever in that room. And so I think you've probably solidified one spot. Now, a long way to go until you get to August 30th against Bama, but you will have the summer workouts. You will have fall camp. And we've been questioning a lot about Florida State. This was a absolute solid. I even saw, there hasn't been much for them to give praise about. I even saw rivals saying like, all right, well, that's a pretty good take. That's a good pickup. So Florida State goes out and lands Jeremiah Wilson, a big pickup there at the cornerback position.
Yeah, one that I'm really excited about. He's bounced around a bit. He was at Syracuse, then at Houston. Now he's coming to Florida State. So he keeps upgrading because yes, Houston is an upgrade from Syracuse. But at the same time, I'm a little bit partial to this one because, he played at Osceola High School, which is in Kissimmee, right down the road from me. So, always loved seeing a local kid end up at Florida State. And like you said, even when Florida State, if you look at their worst rosters of the past 20 plus years, the DB room was always pretty solid, if not elite. So it is an expectation at Florida State, especially, when you get Florida kids homegrown, DB is probably the strongest position coming out of the state of Florida. And for him to come here, I think he's an instant starter. I think he's a guy that will probably come in and start from day one when he gets here. And I think he's just the guy that we talked about again. DB was probably on the lowest level of what our needs when we talked about last week. But at the same time, to your point, you said if we could get an impact player, you take him, and he certainly fits the bill.
Yeah. No, he's a good pickup for Florida State, and kind of nothing but positivity there. Like I have no negativity about that take. And hopefully they can add more talent like that. We always talk about how in the spring portal there's not as much just A+ talent. I don't know that this isn't like this. I don't, to be somewhat measured, I don't know that this is a can't miss, like absolute shutdown number one corner or anything like that. But I do think that when you can, like, he was certainly probably the best cornerback you could have gotten, right? Like, so anytime you land that, like, yeah, you got to go out and do it. And Florida State's done a good job of getting him in and solidifying that defense a little bit more. We've talked about like having some comfortability with the defensive line, having some comfortability with the linebacker unit that you've got. And you need to make sure the secondary is taking care of their business too. And you certainly have taken a step towards ensuring that there. And then they also pick up a transfer from a quarterback. This feels like, and I don't know what Florida State fans will think about this. I don't know what your take is on it. They pick up a cornerback, Jalen King from out of Georgia, Folkestone, Georgia, but was at both Gardner-Webb and East Tennessee State University. Very developmental type pickup, but has rushed for over 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. So maybe a little bit of a Trevor Jackson replacement, just somebody to have on the roster, see how they develop, see if there's something in a couple of years, use them on the scout team, use them on the practice team some. This is not one that I'm doing backflips over, but you've just added a little bit of depth to that room. I certainly would imagine he's QB4 at best within that room, but you lost a quarterback in Trevor Jackson. You kind of need an emergency guy in case, who knows what the heck happens. And so Florida State adds a kid with, at the end of the day, he's got, nearly 3,000 passing yards and almost 1,000 rushing yards in his couple of seasons. He played 10 games at East Tennessee State University last year. So, not lighting the world on fire. I'm not doing backflips here, but you add to that depth in that room for sure.
And I think that's what you need. People can say what they want about Jimbo, and I know Florida State fans are very mixed about him. But, when it comes to quarterbacks, there's not a better head coach, when he was coaching, when it comes to developing and evaluating quarterbacks. And he always said, you need at least 4 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. And that's what this does. It just adds that extra layer of depth. You hope things never go completely south to where you have to get to your number 4 quarterback. But we saw it just last year, or excuse me, in 2023, when, Jordan Travis goes down, and then, out of nowhere, Brock Glenn is having to start against Louisville. So you need depth at that position. And again, I don't think he'll ever be a starting all ACC type player, but at the same time, it's just good to add depth to the position group, because you're going to need it, especially with the offense that Gus Malzahn is going to run. He's going to expect his quarterbacks to run the ball. When that happens, injuries tend to happen. So I think this is a good pickup. I'm not going to, again, to your point, I'm not going to say it's an amazing pickup, but it is a good addition to the QB room.
Yeah. Is it Evan? I can't see the comment super well. Yeah, that's a good point that he makes there. We don't have a quarterback committed in the 26 class. We've gone after a few guys and not done a super great job there. And we've had a decommitment. Obviously, Smigel just went to committed to Michigan. So I do think that you do need to fill that room out if you're not going to do it in the recruiting rankings. You got to fill that room. somewhere. And so, yeah, that's a really good point there. And Levin, I appreciate your comment. We'll see what Florida State can do otherwise in the portal. I know they're hosting a DB from, or in communication and potentially hosting a DB from Hawaii. I don't have every single update from the portal of who they're still targeting. I still think they need to bring a few more in. They've lost some guys. There is some space on the roster. I don't know that they're in it for anybody that's like a massive impact type guy. You're not going to Hawaii and just getting, a crazy stud or anything. But I would like to see them add a little bit more Richie. I mean, there's no doubt that, you've had some spaces open up. We'll talk about another departure here in a minute. But I think that they could continue to add there, whether it's on, we've talked about offensive line. You had a departure there in Jalen Early. That was certainly a depth piece. Wide receiver, you had some departures. We talked about some guys that were maybe good targets last week. Most of those guys have already committed, or you're not really in the picture for them. So I don't really know what's left out there on the wide receiver front. You're probably not picking up somebody that's going to make a massive impact for you. But I do think that they could certainly do a little bit more work there. I would love another safety. I'd love another defensive lineman. If you could find a wide receiver that was going to be anything more than like a wide receiver 4, you probably would take them too. I don't know if that exists yet, or still not yet. But I'd like to see them do a little bit more work there. They have 2 portal commitments. One guy is not going to make an impact this year, and then one guy is a huge impact. Now, obviously, they did a good job in the December window, and they took a lot of guys there. But if you can bolster the roster a little bit more, now you certainly should.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the recruiting at the high school level beat this like a dead horse. It's not been great, right? So you kind of have to have lived in the portal, and hopefully that high school recruiting does turn around. There's the chance this class this year could end up being a top 10 class. We'll see what happens as things continue. But at the same time, you to have a competitive season, if you want to get to 7, 8, maybe even 9 wins, I know that sounds crazy, you're going to have to continue to add pieces in the portal to fill out the roster gaps, because unfortunately there are a lot of gaps on the roster right now.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the draft a little bit. But first, I will give Garnet and Gold some love. Make sure that if you are shopping for any FSU gear, you do that at Garnet and Gold, garnetandgold.com. Use code NOSLAW, NOSLAW, for 15% off of your order. We appreciate Garnet and Gold, as always, for their support. Make sure that you're putting your orders in with them and nobody else. Let's talk about the draft a little bit. Azariah Thomas goes to the Jets in the 3rd round. He's the 73rd overall pick. He was getting a little bit of buzz, Richie, as potentially being a guy that could go late 1st round, if not early 2nd round, and then seemed to slide to that mid 3rd round pick. He joins Jordan Travis. Derek Noddy is there. Jermaine Johnson is there. There's one more, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but Pkwy Wilson is there. So joins a few Seminoles on that roster. Going mid 3rd round, should AZ Thomas have come back? Like, I'm happy for him. I'm not, I think you got to take, but I think his NIL deal would have been pretty similar. Now, not guaranteed, and obviously injuries could happen, but could he have improved his stock with another really good year? Was it surprising to see him slide? Like, I'm leaning towards he probably should, he probably should have come back based on where he ended up getting drafted.
No, I agree. And I think, NFL GMs, it's the same thing with the college recruiting, right? Coaches love to recruit from a high-achieving high school program, right? And the fact that Florida State went 2-10, that was not on AZ at all. He was one of the few bright spots. But if a NFL GM says, "Oh man, this team went 2-10, do I really want this guy, or do I want him that early?" Obviously he had a better week than Sugar Sanders did. But at the same time, I think he probably could have come back and improved his stock, because I do think Florida State's going to have a better year. This is terrible to say. We should make a bowl game. Like, that's horrifying that's our goal right now. But I think if he had come back this year and had another year and progressed at the level he had been progressing at, he probably could have been a 1st rounder in next year's draft. And I think he definitely could make a comparable salary in NIL money to what he's going to make as a 3rd round pick. But, I think he probably should have come back. But at the same time, I don't blame the kid at all. Like, go do that. That you're having life-changing money for not just you, but for your entire family. And that's what's most important to all these players.
Yeah, I got no problem with him going. Now also he had a phenomenal year and he graded out really well. He tested well. So maybe that's just kind of where he is. Maybe he is just kind of a 3rd round guy. And maybe coming back wouldn't have helped him in a massive way, right? Maybe it was just another year of wear and tear on him and playing for a team that's, not great. I'm trying to diss FSU too much, but maybe it does. I mean, although he went to the Jets, it's not like 6 1 half dozen other. But there's also the side that, like, does he improve his stock that much, or is that about where he'd have been taken next year too, right? What if he doesn't have as good of a year next year, at Florida State, and then he falls even further. So there's 2 sides to every coin, but I would have leaned that, it felt he certainly didn't fall like Shedeur, and maybe we can talk about that in just a minute. But yeah, I thought he could have potentially come back and made a little bit more. But I will say I didn't think that before. I thought his grade was much higher. I thought he'd go earlier. I thought there was a chance he could sneak into the end of the 1st round. I was hoping the Bucs would go after him with their 2nd pick, but they took a cornerback from Notre Dame, and I have no issues with that. But I thought that he potentially could have made himself a little bit more money. But hindsight being 2020, it's easy for me to say that now. The other drafted FSU player, Josh Farmer, went to the Patriots in the 4th round, 137th overall. I think this is a good fit for Josh. I think the Patriots it's a spot where, 4th round is probably, he's probably not expected to come in and be a starter. So he's got some time to kind of grow and learn. But you've seen some FSU defensive linemen, and, Odell has done a great job with the development of that position. I know the recruiting is something that we have complained about and lamented at times, but, guys go to the league and they play for a long time. I mean, we talked about Derek Nottie. He was playing back then with Dalvin and stuff, like way back, and he's still on an NFL roster. And so I think it's impressive that, Josh goes to the Patriots. Both guys go into that AFC East, but I think that's a good fit for him. And I think it's a franchise that's trying to rebuild, but I think Josh works incredibly hard. And really, like, you look at the pictures of what Josh was, when he first got to campus, and then, where he is now, just kind of the monster that he is. I'm excited to see what he can do. I like following these guys going forward. I'm not as in the NFL as you are, but I do think that he's one that is really interesting. And I think the Patriots are a good fit for him.
Yeah. And honestly, I think it's a bit of a steal to get him that late. He has your prototypical NFL defensive lineman body and his measurables and everything you could want. And, even if they thought they were taking a flyer on him, that is a great pickup for New England. And it'll be interesting to see, how things work out there. And as you said, he's not going to be pressured to perform year one. He can develop and continue to develop. But I think what he did at Florida State was phenomenal. He was a very good player at Florida State. And I think going to the Patriots, obviously it's a different organization now with Bill Belichick no longer being there. But at the same time, I think, if you're looking at good fits, I think this is a really good fit for Farmer.
Some signings. We'll go through these quickly, but Ryan Fitzgerald signs with the Panthers. I hate when Florida State guys sign in the NFC South. Personally, I know you're the same way, because it's like you want them to do well. Gano kicked there forever. Right? Chris Winkie went there, obviously. Like there's been Benjamin went there, and you're talking about some of your favorite guys going there. Like I hate when Chris Winkie went there, I was just like, God, why is this a thing? Chris Winkie's so underrated. I still love him to death. And anyway, I hated that, but Fitzgerald to the Panthers, I think he has a real shot to make that roster. I love Ryan. I love the kind of the comeback for his career. Obviously 2 years ago, really struggled, but then last year was
horrible and then was amazing.
Yeah. Just, I hope that trend only continues up, and I really am pulling for that kid. Some other signings, I think maybe one has a chance to make a roster. DJU, signs with the Chargers, Cam Riley with the Panthers, Fintrell Cypress with the Commanders. They need so much secondary help that he's got a long way to go, but that's one that I could see making a roster because their defense is so terrible. Jeremiah Byer signs with the Cardinals, so he's out there with Trey Benson, gets to block for him a little bit in the preseason. Just being very transparent, I'd be surprised if DJ or Cam or Jeremiah made a 53-man roster. I think Fintrell has a chance. He's very athletic. He needs to kind of continue to improve a little bit, but some other signings that happened as well. I don't know if you have any quick thoughts on those. If not, we can talk Shedeur.
Yeah, no, I definitely think Fitzgerald has the best chance of any of them because he was really good the last year. We probably, as far as bad as Florida State was, we had probably the best kicker-punter combo in the entire nation.
Yeah.
Which I wholeheartedly believe that. But yeah, Fintrell, potentially. I don't think DJ makes the roster. Cam Riley, probably not. You're looking at a lot of practice squad guys that you just mentioned.
So do you have a take on the Shedeur thing? Obviously, he was getting hype as maybe a top 5 pick, and then it sounded like, okay, top 10, and then it was like, he might slide out of that, but then, probably still first round, go to the Steelers or something, and he slides all the way down to, was it the 5th round? Is that where he ended up?
5th round for Cleveland.
Yeah, which Cleveland, it's great for Cleveland because they ended up getting a really good pick early, and not having to waste it on Shedeur when nobody else took him. But thoughts on the Shedeur stuff?
Yeah, apparently, there was one quote from an assistant coach who said just his interviews were horrible. His body language was terrible. None of it looked good when it, according to, again, this is one assistant coach, but at the same time, people clearly thought that as well. And I just don't think he's that good of a quarterback as far as an NFL prospect. Yeah, he was good in college, but at the same time, you think of, I forget the guy's name, the quarterback from Hawaii that I think Brennan. Yeah, Colt Brennan. Yeah, he was phenomenal in college. He probably should have won a Heisman, but he was never going to be a good NFL quarterback. And I think that's probably what these coaches and GMs think. And I just want to read you this tweet that I think is hilarious. From March 13th, 2018. It is from Coach Prime. I love what the Browns have done this offseason, but if I'm a young QB, there's ain't no way I'm going to Cleveland. I would pull a Eli Manning if possible. And I just thought that was hilarious to see that resurface.
Yeah, the best old takes exposed ever. I agree, on the Shedeur stuff. Like, I think ultimately, people want to make it about race or conspiracy or they hate Prime or whatever. Like, guys that got caught smoking bongs on camera go in the first round. Like Johnny Manziel went in the first round. Baker Mayfield was arrested and went in the first round. And, Jameis had all his off the field stuff that people brought up, and he went number 1 overall. Like, if you're good, teams don't care because
if your talent outweighs your problems.
Correct.
They do not care.
And I don't think Shedeur has any problems. I'll say that. I think he's actually a really good kid, and he's very cocky, but I don't care about that at all. Michael Jordan's the most cocky person that ever
want
lived.
My quarterback to be cocky.
Yes, I love Tiger Woods, and he's out here banging Perkins waitresses. Like, you're allowed to be cocky, right? Like that. I have no problem with that at all. Jameis had a picture with crab legs the night of the draft. People, these guys do not care about, he's cocky. So what? I don't care about any of that. I don't think he's a bad person. I think the media circus that follows anything Coach Prime, it's similar to, and they're so different of people, right? But it's similar to Tebow. Like when the Broncos finally cut Tebow, no franchise wanted Tebow because they didn't want that Tebow mania for their backup, right? Like, you don't want to hear about a backup. Like, have you ever heard any Kyle Trask news? Like, have you ever, right? Like, it barely got mentioned when he got married, right? Like, and he's like that's all you want in a backup. You just want a guy that's going to sit there and not bring the wrong kind of attention to your program, to your franchise, whatever. And I don't think that teams, valued him as a starter. I think if you get drafted in the 5th round, it's pretty clear that you are not a starter caliber in the NFL. Now, maybe he develops into that. I have no clue. But I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think he brings that inappropriate type baggage. I just don't think teams want that in a backup. I don't think they want a sideshow in a backup. And I'm not saying it's him causing it, but it follows, and that's something I think people look at. I also think it was an incredibly bad decision to. I think he only interviewed with like the top 5 teams. And so like you're pigeonholing yourself, man. Like, that's a mistake. Like you gotta, I understand being brash, I understand being cocky, but you gotta take interviews with other teams. Jameis didn't just interview with one team, even though everybody knew the Bucs were going to take him. Like he interviewed with other teams. Cam Ward interviewed with other teams. I also think this QB class is absolutely awful. Like I don't think there's a good quarterback. Like it would shock me, and Cam's probably the most likely to. It would shock me if any quarterback from this class is starting in 5 years in the NFL, right? Like Cam's like the only one that I could see potentially doing it. But even that would surprise me a little bit. Like I'm not super sold on him as like a long-term NFL guy. I think he's clearly the best, and every NFL franchise would agree with that. Like he was going number 1 no matter what. But I'm not sold on this class. And so when it's a weak class and you've got these other issues and other things going on too, it becomes tough. Anything else surprise you? Okay, this is the only one. Shout out to our Jacksonville fans. Anybody that's watching from Jacksonville or listening from there, our Jacksonville Seminole fans finally get to cheer for Travis Hunter. I thought so. They gave up a lot for sure. That was the best pick of the draft. I thought that was Travis Hunter in Jacksonville is going to be fun. Like I know people are still salty and bitter about that, but actually I think the Giants had a really good pick too, getting Abdul Carter. I think he might be the best player in the draft. If not, it's Hunter. But shout out to the Jacksonville fans that get to cheer for something that Richie and I never got to cheer for.
No, and I'm really happy for Travis Hunter, and I think that just affirms the point that Shedeur just wasn't that good, because Travis Hunter also played at Colorado, and he went number 2 overall, and I think that Williams, because they didn't care about where he was or what happened. And, just going back to, the Cam Ward point, looking at the last 10 years, the number 1 pick, Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Myles Garrett, Baker, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Trevor Walker, Bryce Young, and Caleb Williams, and then Cam Ward. So, this is going to sound like a hater, but I think Cam Ward is probably the worst number 1 overall, and it goes to your point of the fact that this is a terrible quarterback class.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he is. Like I'm not trying. I've seen the Miami fans just be crying on Twitter all weekend about how they didn't give him enough attention. It was so known that he was going to be the number 1 pick. Like it wasn't like a Jameis Mariota thing where you had 2 quarterbacks at the top and you were trying to see who was going to go. And we all thought Jameis would be. He was a big favorite to go number 1. But they were over it, right? Like there were other storylines. But it's been funny to watch. It's also because he, I don't know, give him 3 or 4 years and he's probably out of it. So out of a starting job. So yeah, I think the quarterback class just sucked, and he just happened to be the best of all of them, and Tennessee needed a quarterback. If Jacksonville would have picked first, they probably would have stayed in first and taken Hunter. Like, I truly believe that. Like, I don't think, or if the Giants, I think that was, you got a quarterback needy team. Maybe somebody would have traded up, maybe not, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think Travis Hunter was by far the best prospect in the draft.
Yeah, him or Carter. I think Abdul Carter, like an edge rusher, like I think he could end up having the best NFL career. We'll see. I think he's a little bit more ready, but it's certainly one of those two. Right now, as we sit here on April 27th, I got to look down and check. What's your over under for how many guys FSU has drafted next year?
Oh man, I'd have to go through the roster, but I'd say 5.5. What do you think?
Ooh, 5.5. All right. So I think Jackson has a great chance. I think you could see a cornerback drafted, maybe the one we just picked up. So that's 2. Safety, one of those guys would have to make a jump to make it. James Williams could get drafted, so maybe there's 3. Safety, I'm not confident in. Tight end, no. Running back, no. Castellanos maybe late. I mean, I don't know, man. Freaking Tyler Shuck got drafted from Louisville. So maybe Castellanos late if he has a really good year. I mean, Jalen Milroe got drafted. So yeah, I guess Castellanos could. So there's 4-ish, 5. Yeah, I mean, like five would to me feel like pushing it. No, I'd be surprised if any offensive linemen were. Maybe you could get one of those tackles drafted if they kind of ball out.
Do you say 4.5?
Yeah, yeah, something like that.
Okay, that's fair.
Somebody remember that. Somebody remember that and call us on it when it's either going to. So that what that means, since Richie and I are both around 4 or 5, it's going to be 8 or 2. Like that's what's going to happen. Either a bunch of guys ball out or Richie and I. We're way off one way or the other because I certainly had more than 2. Yeah, I don't want to even talk about this, but yeah, like last year I was thinking DJU gets drafted. I was thinking we'd have a lot more drafted than we're. So. Yeah. I thought Mastro and Fitz would have a chance, but obviously special team, you can just sign them and you're good. All right, if you're watching this live or on replay, do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. We'll close with one more segment here in a second. I did also see somebody mention the golf team. Yeah, they're up 4-1 right now. I have it up on GolfStat. The men's golf team competing in the ACC championship in the quarterfinals, up 4-1 right now on Cal, but a lot of close matches, so those could kind of go either way down the stretch. Let's jump into a portal loss with Marquise and Douglas. Biscuit leaves, Richie, and I have a take here. I think we probably, and I didn't go this far when he signed with Florida State when we brought him back, but I do remember talking about how I thought it was a weird take. I didn't really love the take. I didn't really think it benefited you in a massive way, but with roster kind of expansion and roster limits going up, I didn't think it was a terrible thing. Like, I didn't think it really hurt you. Just kind of was what it was, and he was just kind of there. He ends up leaving and jumping in the portal this weekend, and I don't think that, just like I didn't think it helped you when he came, I don't think this hurts you in any way, right? Like I'm not all doom and gloom on it. But I do think what if Chase Lofton, your 4-star tight end, could have gotten more reps in the spring? Or what if Landon could have gotten more reps? Or you could have used that time, effort, and energy, resources, NIL, whatever that you went after Marquise with to get him back. What if you could have used that on somebody else, right? Like that, you only have 24 hours in a day. What if you could have kind of used that elsewhere? So I didn't love the take when it happened. I'm not necessarily upset that he's gone. I am a little frustrated with, again, the wasted time, effort, energy, and NIL that it took to get him. And my take is, I don't know that once guys leave, we really need to be bringing them back. Like, I don't know what the hit rate is on guys like that. I don't have the time to do an entire spreadsheet on who was good after leaving or going or coming back or whatever. But this is now the third player, I think. I don't know if there's more, but the ones that immediately jump out to me are DJ Lundy, Amarion Cooper, and now Biscuit. I don't necessarily this needs to be a new thing that Norvell gets in his mind for however long he's here. And then if there's another coach after him, once a guy leaves and goes to another program, I don't know that it makes a ton of sense to bring them back. I don't really know what you're gaining there. If it was some kind of a can't miss prospect, I don't even really know who I would put in that boat. Or if you asked the guy to leave and he wanted to come back, that's probably a sign of another issue, right? Like Trayshawn Ward is kind of one that is in my mind. Like the running back room was crowded. He wanted to be a number one. I think that was kind of a mutual parting of ways. But if you were bringing Trayshawn Ward back, that means your running back room is in a spot where, why is he coming back? Are guys really getting that much better when they're not being developed by you? So I don't know. That's my quick thoughts on that is just we probably need to stop letting guys come back after they leave. Maybe, is that mean? Is that just I don't know. It never made sense to me to bring him back. There was for some reason excitement or hype around him during the spring. And then, a couple weeks later, he's out.
Yeah, no. So my thought is that there needs to be very intentional conversations. And if I were a head coach, which I'm not, obviously, if you enter the portal, congratulations, best of luck to you, but you're not coming back here. And I think the Lundy thing was out of desperation because the linebacker room was, such a disaster. But at the same time, I think if you do enter the portal, again, best of luck, best wishes, wish you nothing but success wherever your next stop is, but you're not coming back to Florida State. And especially once you commit elsewhere, and then come back. I just think that's a huge mistake that Norvell has made. I think it sends a bad message to the roster to where they think, even if it's NIL driven, they're like, okay, well, let me think here. Let me go see what my market value is. And if I can't get what I want, I know Norvell is just going to take me back. I think that's a huge mistake by Mike Norvell.
Yeah, I don't think it's just an FSU thing. Like I've seen this other places too, whether they've actually like you think about the Farmer and Peyton stuff that happened. You think about some of the other DBs that have kind of played this game. You think about these guys leaving and coming back, and whether it's for desperation or NIL or whatever the situation is, when you threaten to leave or you leave or whatever, like we got to get to a place in really all of college football where we do what Tennessee did. And their best player on their roster, they said, dude, kick rocks, right? Now, he attacked it from a different way. I'm not trying to paint Marqueson in that kind of light. I'm not trying to say that he was demanding, some crazy NIL situation or whatever. But I do think that, man, I mean, you remember Tyler Van Dyke a couple of years ago at Miami holding them hostage with an Alabama offer. And then what's he do, right? In 2023, comes out and is absolutely terrible. Goes to Wisconsin. Now he's at SMU, not even as the starter, right? Like I think Jennings starts there and he's a backup. And I think when you get to a point where guys are either leaving or holding you hostage or demanding more NIL and threatening to do this, you just got to part ways. And that's tough to do, especially in a desperate situation that Norvell's in. But I mean, Mario was coming off of a losing season and told Van Dyke, like, hey dog, hit the road. He could have told Van Dyke at that moment, like, hit the road, man. Like, you're not holding us hostage. And I do think Mario's mindset on that has changed some, not completely though, because I did see that what was their was it Zaquan Patterson or something? Nikar, their wide receiver, jumped in the portal and then jumped back in, and they're saying it's not NIL related, but like, let's be honest with ourselves on how life works. I think we got to get to a point, not just at FSU, but in college football, where you got to stop letting the there's no better way to put this. And I'm all for players getting paid. So if you want to go somewhere else and get paid more, like I'm good with that. But we got to stop letting the inmates run the asylum, right? Like we got to, I'm cool with players getting paid. I'm cool with everything that we've got in college football. I've got no problems with that. But if you're going to jump ship. See ya. Like we're good with that is totally fine. But we got to bring some order back into this thing. And you can't be leaving the program and then coming back. And I don't know why Florida State wasted their time with this, but they did. And hopefully that's something that, programs are learning from. And if Tennessee can do it with Nico, like if Tennessee can do it with their best player, like literally the odds dropped an entire game for Tennessee, right? Like they were an 8.5 team. Now they're at 7.5. Like if they're willing to do that with their best player, then Florida State can do this with a second string or third string or fourth string tight end, right? Like this is not the game we need to be playing in this sport anymore. And not just Florida State, like everybody this needs to stop. And hopefully it will. I don't really care if other programs do it. In fact, I hope it happens to more programs like Miami and Florida, where guys jump in the portal and then jump back out of the portal and then go to another program and then come back to their program a year later. Like, yeah, I'd love for that to happen to my rivals. But that's something I hope gets fixed everywhere. But certainly, hopefully Mike Norvell has learned his lesson. If you're getting rid of a guy or if a guy chooses to leave you probably need to invest that time, effort, energy, resources, NIL in other places.
No, 100%. And it's really that simple. And again, imagine being someone who's all in a program like Florida State or any other school, and you see one of your teammates hop in the portal, commit to another school, and then say they want to come back. Like, no, like that would rub me the wrong way. And I would go to my head coach at that point and say, Coach, like, why are you allowing this to happen? Like, this should never be acceptable. And I think, Norvell, he's an extremely good person. He's extremely invested in the players. But I think that clouds his judgment to some aspect of where he allows some of this stuff to happen. And again, I just think it sends the wrong message to the team.
Yeah. Hopefully. And I get it. I get he's desperate right now. I get they were coming off a 2-10 season, and I don't know what went into the thought process there, but it never made sense to me when it happened with Douglas. And now 3 or 4 months later, he's not there anymore, and you wasted a lot of time and effort. And
how many wins was CJ Lundy worth last year?
I mean, he was not a good linebacker for you. Like he wasn't, he showed some promise at the end of the year before, but he just wasn't a good linebacker for you last year. No. And I think there's something to that. I think there's something to guys leaving and coming back, and what their chemistry is with the locker room. You had to pay Lundy. I don't know what they paid Douglas, but you paid Lundy more to leave Colorado and come back than he was originally even asking for. Like I've got that on good information. You had to pay him more to come back from Colorado because you were desperate. Man, if that's your plan, like that's a side effect to me. Go out and get better recruiters. Go out and do this, do that, do the right things, and you won't be put in those situations where you're desperate. So yep. I don't know. That's my take on that. So I think that's about it for today. Golf's playing right now. Baseball is going for the series win later today. Softball going for the sweep later today. We may have some content on some of those things here soon, but I think that's about all we got for today. Richie, you got anything else? You got any shout outs or anything?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to Paula Vancaro and Franz Wagner, and let's make it 2-2.
I mean, I would like to see the Magic win too. I don't think it happens, but I'd like to see them win. So I had a good friend that was at the game the other night, but if they can get another one, make it 2-2, it'll be fun. Yeah, I need the Lakers to win today and FSU baseball and softball and all them to get their wins. So golf's still up 4-1 as we sign off, trying to get to the semifinals. Oh, it's 3-1-1 now. So getting a little tighter. So we'll see. All right. TJ Pinger, Richie Barnes, Harlan Harris, controlling everything on the back end. We appreciate you guys as always for tuning in. Make sure that you are subscribed. We will be back with you next Sunday, same time, have content throughout the week as well. Appreciate you tuning in. Go Noles.